Okay, I would like to call to order the ARB meeting for tonight, Wednesday, April 21st. Roll call, please.
Carson,
Present.
King,
Here.
Schneider,
Here.
Utz,
Here.
Terrell.
All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, we are at citizens' time. Do we have anyone that would like to speak for citizens' time that does not have an active application?
Hello. Jim Payne, 6680 Fayette Street, A Dog's Day Out. But going to be quick. I just had a little observation I made. I was at the CIP meeting on Monday, and we're talking about the, I guess, the gateway sign. I'm not really sure exactly what the gateway sign is, but I was thinking that maybe, I know they spoke about maybe letting Leesburg do it. I know we have a very good designer and did a lot of stuff for our business right down the street in Foster's. I think would be a good idea to have at least some input from a business that is in Haymarket. Maybe they can't do the fabrication, but they certainly could do the design work. She's a graphic artist and she does all that. I think that would just be a nice touch to have the Haymarket sign designed by someone that's in Haymarket. So with that, I'll be quick. Thank you for listening, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Dottie Leonard, 14801 Washington Street. I heard a number of things the other night at the planning meeting where there was discussion about the reason we declared the historic overlay was because Disney was here and we were afraid we'd be swallowed up by Disney. The truth is Disney was already gone, and we had already been working because it was near our bicentennial year. We turned 200 years old in 1999, and I was on for 4 two-year terms in the 90s and into the early 2000s. But there were other things going on at the time. We were being dumped on by Prince William County. They had this beautiful long park donated to them by a local Haymarket resident, and I knew her personally, but we have never gotten a pool there. The closest pool to us is in Manassas, but you go on down to Woodbridge and Route 1 area, there's a number of facilities, and all we have is the Freedom Center. Even though I appreciate it, I remember when we didn't have that. But in addition, the thing that really set everybody in motion was that they planned to put a junkyard where that building that is now storage, adjacent to where Sheets is, at the corner of 15 and 55. Can you imagine, as close as the town limits are to that, we would have smelled that all the way into our town. So I'm pleading with you all to save the historic overlay if you can. A lot of things have been approved already that don't look colonial, and the adopted theme was colonial because we started during the colonial period. So if it's not too late, I know the little winery in town looks like it was brought here from Italy, or wine tasting place. It's 2 doors from my house. Everybody wanted to save my house, but they didn't care that that looks more like Italy than it does like Colonial Haymarket. So do what you can. Just know that, and there was another thing that was mentioned that night that I've heard several times, and it is just not factual. I was on the Historic Commission with a lot of wonderful ladies who actually started the Citizens for the Betterment and Harmony of Haymarket. Adrian Crafton Masterson was once the chair of the Historic Commission, and she actually named the citizens group. So these women worked together to write that book that's on the shelf over there. And it might not have everything in it, but it's more than we ever had. It's something local about our town. And we also have, there's some other books that are available in Manassas, in their museum, that tell you what things were like all the way back to the Civil War period here. And it's really, some of them are really fascinating and interesting. I can just get soaked up in them. But those women said they wanted to save as many of the houses as they could that were 50 years old at the time we were doing that. At least 50 years old and older. But if they couldn't be saved, they'd rather have them torn down than look in disrepair. So, or fall in on somebody. So they suggested building back things that could look like they'd always been here, but not to save everything that was built since then just because it becomes 50 years old. The intent was to save things that were 50 years old in the 90s or older. So if you hear that again, say, that's not how it happened. I knew them all personally. I remember when they said it. So the intent is to build back things that look like they were always here because we were burned to the ground. We had to start from scratch. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Anyone else for citizens' time? Okay, next thing on the agenda is minute approval. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from our regular meeting on March 24th, 2021?
Sure, I move that the ARB approve the regular meeting minutes of March 24th, 2021.
Okay, do I have a second? I'll second that. Okay. All in favor say aye. 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 All right, good. All right, so the minutes are accepted. So we will now move on to agenda items.
Okay, tonight we have before us a COA for a fence application. The property address is 14971 Keavy Place, and this is for a fence that will meet up with the neighbor's fence in Sherwood Forest. Sorry, let me get to the page. If you look at packet page 17, you will see the area in which the fence will go and connect to the existing neighbor's fence. The page before it, packet 16, you'll see an example of what this fence would look like. And then as you flip further to the very last page, page 24, you'll have an image here of the house. You can envision where the fence is going to go along the side, and then you can see where it's going to meet up in the rear of the property with the neighbor's fence. So this fence is in accordance with our guidelines. I do recommend approval. I just ask that the applicant submit the final approval letter from the HOA prior to us releasing the final approval letter. So if you have any questions, though, the applicant is here to answer them or discuss with you.
Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask?
No, just to affirm that this is, the adjacent property has the same material fence?
Yes.
Okay, and it's just completing that pattern around the perimeter of the property. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's all that I had too, was it looked like from the picture that it matched, it's the same fence that's in the back half, of the back portion of the yard?
Yeah, we're gonna use the same materials, so.
Okay. And I would agree, assuming we'll get the approval from your HOA, if it's in accordance with the HOA. I don't really have any questions, it seems pretty straightforward. You guys?
Okay. If you're ready, there is a motion on page 9 of your packet. Maybe just add in that motion conditional on receiving the Sherwood Forest HOA approval letter.
All right. Just conditional on receiving the Sherwood Forest HOA letter. Okay, so I move the board approve COA ZP 2021-008 for the fence addition at 14971 Kiwi Place, conditional on the receipt of the Sherwood Forest HOA approval letter.
Second?
Roll call.
Yes, please.
Larson,
Aye.
King,
Aye.
Schneider,
Yes.
Utz.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is all that we have for the agenda. Do we have any old business?
I'll give a brief update real quick so everyone is aware. The Van Meter property, there, some of us know it as the old Smith property as well. They have started construction. They have started clearing the perimeter and putting in the ENS measures so that they can do more grading work in the coming weeks. They have worked with neighboring properties regarding different kinds of surveys they do prior to construction. And so that should be complete this week, if it has not already been complete. They will begin some level of blasting and drilling in the next week or two. So if you hear anything, that's most likely what it is, but if you have any concerns, certainly call the town. We will be putting out notifications on our website through the text alert and the Facebook page, just letting our residents know when this will be happening, what hours of the day. So that's moving along. If you have any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to share information with you, your HOA, your neighbors on that project. Other old business, just so that everyone is aware, Crossroads Village will be coming up to the town council for a public hearing, excuse me, on May 3rd. That is for 2 SUP applications, and that's going to be one for an additional special use request for up to 74 townhomes, 2/2 style townhomes. And then the second SUP is going to be for a Starbucks coffee drive-through closer up to the front of Washington Street. That does kind of overlap in a planning commission and town council update, but since you guys have seen the Crossroads Village team, I wanted to give you guys that during old business. As for now, that is all I have for old business, unless you guys have any questions.
No, I just will comment, they did send a note out regarding the potential blasting to like close-in neighbors. So they have at least let the neighborhood know, or anybody that might be affected.
Wonderful. So far they've been a really good team. when it comes to notifying, meeting with the right people, the HOAs, letting the neighbors know for both properties, the one outside of town and the one within. So glad to hear that.
They're tapping the water lines underneath my rear fence. And they've been, I would say all the years I've done urban planning, I think I've understood, I wouldn't say NIMBYism, but just the concerns you have. It has been extremely stressful, that level of activity right outside your door. But they've done a very good job. The blasting, we did the same thing. We got the contact because of the blasting. The equipment operators have been very careful moving along the property lines. We met with them on site and walked the property, and they understood that they gave us feedback on the timeline. So far, so good. So, thanks.
For new business, I did pass out the capital improvements plan. I would like to spend a few minutes going through this so that you guys are caught up on what the Planning Commission discussed at our meeting on Monday night. And this is something that we will be presenting to the town council. Right now we're in budget season, so together I work with the Planning Commission and the Architectural Review Board each year to develop what we would like to see in the plan. It's over the course of 5 years, and then we take this to council reviews and makes adjustments so that we can financially plan for our larger projects. So as you can see, we have some items we're working on for Washington Street beautification. Currently, we do have some infrastructure in place already. We have the nice planters, we have benches, light posts. In some places, like up at the park, we do have a bike rack. So we have put in a line item here to do additional work, mainly to work on coming through and determining what level of service our light posts need. Some of them significantly need work when it comes to getting new banner arms so we can continue to display our nice banners and wreaths. Working on getting some of the lantern heads replaced. Some of them are very yellowed, and overall it just doesn't give us a good daytime look. So we're going to come in and kind of do an audit of what we have up in place and what needs work. So for this upcoming year, we've requested for $20,000 so that we can really look at the light post and do a good amount of this work in the coming year. And then we've put in a line item for $5,000 for the following 3 years so that we can keep up on the maintenance and not let it get too far out of control. And then we have put $25,000 in for the 5th year. We are thinking that if we come in and we do a painting program on our light posts so that we can get that nice dark forest green color on some that have faded a good bit, that they may need it again in several years' time, or we may be looking at a different portion needing the paint. So this is kind of that first line item explained. Does anybody have any questions or any additions for that line item?
If I could just add part of the council discussion, and this sort of preempts the council update, but we had asked questions specifically about the planters. How are those maintained? Those will be separately maintained under our landscape contract. We had talked about the fixtures, Emily, the fixtures themselves, if we wanted to go to a more reflective sort of finial, not finial, what do you call it, the acorn top. Right now it's sort of a lot of light pollution up. Do we want to look at in future years transitioning those out? Was that specific discussion by the commission on Monday, or was that sort of a later?
That was a later discussion.
Okay.
We did not get as in depth on that discussion. I do just, you brought up the planters, I just kind of want to give a little shout out, if you will. Our Haymarket Town and Country Garden Club has very generously taken care of our planters and planted the material, and you maybe often see them coming out and doing weeding and things like that. So we are very lucky to have that partnership with them, but we do also do some of the watering maintenance over the very hot summer months through our line items in our landscape maintenance.
Also, too, the banners are being maintained and upgraded under the town maintenance budget as well.
Yes.
That would be separate from the CIP. The seasonal ones and those sorts of things. So, thank you.
The next item, crosswalk repair. So VDOT recently came through this past fall and repaved all of Washington Street. When they did that, they ripped up the previous crosswalks that we had, and then they paved down the asphalt. They were supposed to come back and install the stamped asphalt in our herringbone pattern with the red color. This was something that there was a bit of a confusion when it came to the contract bid and the person who won that bid. So we're currently working with VDOT. They do have a contract ready to put out for bid. They are waiting, working through all the necessary processes that they have to do administratively. But we do expect that that'll be complete this coming year. The additional crosswalk money we are asking for, though, is so that at the intersection of Fayette and Washington, we can complete the crosswalks. Currently, we have 2 in place, one on the easternmost side from our side of the street across to the southern side of the street at the museum. And then we have one from that corner at the museum across to the western side over closest to the Winterham building. So what we would ideally like to do is finish that square off. So we have placed in here $50,000. That's something we'd like to go ahead and do this coming year. We have placed $20,000 in year 5 of this plan. We do expect that at some point we'll have to do some maintenance, or we may look at transitioning an older crosswalk that might not be stamped into a stamped crosswalk at that time. So that's kind of where we stand on crosswalk repair. If no questions, I'll just kind of jump on down. Streets, sidewalks, and parking. So this is a rather large line item here that we have. So we would like to finish out the Haymarket Park sidewalk. So this is a sidewalk in front of our town park connecting to the Haymarket Baptist sidewalk that's in place all the way up to the corner of Blight Drive. It'll go around that corner property on Blight and tie into the concrete sidewalks that they have there. We have placed a large number here, $250,000 in the upcoming year to work on all of the design and engineering phase. And then we have placed $750,000 in what I would call year 2, 22-23, for the actual construction phase of this project. We base these numbers off of our most recent Jefferson Street pedestrian improvement project. This is a number that we have inflated some for costs of materials as they're going up, but we'll have a better idea here soon of a possible engineering and design phase cost after we have an opportunity to talk with some of our engineer as well as some of the previous people we've worked with on these projects. The Jefferson Street turn lane southbound, that is headed from our property across Washington Street down towards the railroad tracks. So we currently have that turn lane engineered and that site plan approved and ready to go. That is something that we will need to put out for bid and do the necessary administrative steps. So we have looked at possibly funding that in year 2 and 3 of this plan. It may require some utility movement. As, of course, with certain infrastructure projects, you always find the what ifs and the things that are kind of hiding there that you don't know about. So we have increased these values. And then in the third line item, Jefferson Street turn lane northbound, so that would be headed up the street towards Town Hall. So the Haymarket Hotel has given us an easement and deeded us some land so that the town can work on putting in the necessary turn lane to match up with our turn lane on our side to provide a better level of service for this intersection here. This would allow for additional right turns on red while the left and the straight lane were set aside. So we are looking at having to entirely engineer, design, and possibly be moving the utilities on our own. We are looking for assistance from the county as well as possibly the state or federal funding in order to do this. So currently we do have power lines that run right there, and that is something that we'll have to get underground. So this will be a big project for us, but that's kind of where we're at on those 3 items. Anybody have any questions, comments?
Would that also, so once those lanes, or is there a plan with those improvements to also add, because we already have the left turn lanes on Washington Street, just to have the lights that actually give you the ability to turn left? And you know what I'm saying?
So once everything is done with those 2 turn lanes, what VDOT does is they'll come back out. We can request them to come out at any time. We could actually ask them to go ahead and come out now and say, you know, we really think this could be of value. They'll come out, they'll do a little traffic study for us, and they'll determine if it's something that they should resynchronize the lights. But yes, once those turn lanes are put in, it absolutely would be reevaluated and most likely changed.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions for that line item or those topics? Okay. Jumping down, town center property. So the town center has a master plan. This has been designed, engineered, and approved by our planning commission. And so we've set aside monies for ideally doing the curb and gutter parking lot work this upcoming year. And then in future years, looking at possibly doing some of the building construction. I think that the town council will have to discuss how much of the plan, you know, they still would like to follow through with, and to what degree. Do we want to phase it out into multiple phases, have a building phase, a parking lot phase? But the main goal in this upcoming year would be to do the curb, gutter, and all of the paving work. This would include stormwater work, so that figure is a little bit higher. And we will get updated numbers here shortly based on how the materials and supplies have gone up. Questions on that one? Okay. The Haymarket Community Park. So the previous Planning Commission, ARB, and Council all worked together towards developing a master plan. We would like to take this master plan idea and get it engineered so that we can start working towards the goals and the vision that we had for the Haymarket Park. So that's this first year, and then we have put in here some construction costs. So the master plan that was designed would be a phased project based on the depth of just the entire site design, adding in a parking lot, some of the different infrastructure, and then also working on that house up there as well to turn it into our community center. So this is currently where we stand with the Haymarket Community Park. Okay, and then the big ARB item that I would like everybody to talk about, the town signage. So the previous ARB in the last few years has worked diligently in trying to do the Gateway Sign Program. This is essentially a sign program that when you enter the town from any direction, you would be greeted by one of our Haymarket signs. You would see on the Route 55 Washington Street gateways, we would like to do a larger infrastructure style sign, so something that's in brick or stone, whatever the ARB determines to be appropriate, it would be set in that. Those styles of signs, you do have to have an engineer work with you on the structure portion of it. And then on the Jefferson Street approaches and possibly other areas, maybe further down Route 15 as you're coming up through the Diamond, and then down by the railroad tracks, we would be looking at a post and panel gateway sign. To best explain the example of what a post and panel sign is, if you're familiar with going into Leesburg, they often have a more ornamental style post and then a nice placard sign on it. So that is something that we would be looking at. We reached out to the firm that designed the Leesburg signs as well as other historic towns, And so they're very well known for their work that they do with historic programs and getting grant money. And so we got an initial cost estimate from them, and that's what you see here in these line items. The Architectural Review Board 2 years ago pretty much came up with a sign that they would like to see done. Bon Cavazos and Susan Edwards and Ken Lorson played a big part in that. They had been working on it for quite some time, so I will bring that design back to this board in probably next month. We can go ahead and discuss it if it's anything that we would like to alter. Otherwise, we will start reaching out to get a design team to help us in that phase.
Questions? So the VDOT Historic District sign on 66, is that still in play or still an item to
It
consider?
is not currently. It is certainly something we can add on
Okay.
here.
This was when you see, is it the brown signs? It's the one
The
that
brown
says Historic
signs.
District? Especially with sort of the economic development, is that folks that will see that may want to stop and look at that. So at the time, it was quite expensive. I think it was almost $15,000 to get that done. And I think previously we had looked at trying to look into grant money to offset that cost, but that would be, I guess the question would be would that be necessary in light of these other signs? But the other signs would not be on 66. These would be on the other corridors. And then wayfinding, would this tie into, I forget what the ARB approved, did that use the wayfinding too, like labeling the town hall and the museum and the town park?
We can add an additional line item here.
Okay.
We did not currently have any of we do need to do a little bit of maintenance on our current sign that we have outside of the museum.
Okay.
We do not currently have a plan to put a sign on the museum building. We have 2 out front, and then at the park, we do have the 1 monument sign. Again, it does need a little bit of maintenance.
The
That is,
interchanging message ones. Okay, I got you. I got you.
and then here at Town Hall, we have our monument sign out front that also has our tenants on it. We changed that out as tenants come in, but I did mention to Marchant, just as a kind of question to the ARB as well as the town council, do we want to look at putting up signs for the police department as well as Town Hall above our doors? Currently, we only have signs on our doors.
And that would be money coming out of our current budget. This is a suggestion that maybe we fund that.
Correct, either our current budget, or if we want to put it in for the CIP, or do we want to bring it back up in our next fiscal year after July 1? Ideally, we would kind of have an idea of if we want to explore that avenue prior to the budget being set.
So this would be the ones above the doors.
I mean, it would just be we're just talking a small town hall.
Within
That's
our
what would be our
ordinance,
discussion,
it would be
yeah.
up to the board and the town council.
I think initially it was a wayfinding program where it was a unified theme.
Right.
The one across the street of the museum, it has that type style, it has inlaid, I forget the face of it has a relief on it. But we used to have those on either end of town. I think those were hit by cars at some point. We had one in front of the police department when it was down at the park.
We still have those up in storage, and so we can always bring one down and look at kind of that old style if it's something we would like to redo.
Exactly. But part of the rebranding, if we wanted to look at rebranding the town, part of our town seal is kind of a new logo. So do we want to have a unifying theme? But maybe we start first with the gateway signs, and then we come in with the building signs. But something in the interim with the ARB, want to look at something above the door that says Town Hall, especially with DMV Select coming. I think you mentioned that, Emily, as well, with DMV Select, people wanting to know where it is. If people are driving by, it would be helpful to have the signs on the building just for people to know which entrance is which. So, is that something we should put on the future, maybe that one on the future agenda, or how would you like to handle that?
I'll kind of take my
How would you like to
direction.
handle that?
I mean, I would agree. I do think it's worth discussion. I do, I would want to see what was discussed and what the other board put together, but I do think we should have a unified theme. I think having something that's consistent in and out. And I do like the idea of having a sign that identifies you. I don't have the right terminology that you do, but the wayfinder, just to identify where things are. I'm wondering if we could even look at, in line with some of the new, like the new logo and branding, but maybe tie that back into the old and look at what we used before. Maybe we can have something similar, decided to tie, tying, we have to evolve because times, the town looks different, but if we could tie a little bit of the old back in to the new, I think it's a good discussion to have.
So I just suggest, when Emily next brings her back the other signage, maybe we start that
Yes,
discussion.
I would
now.
suggest that.
I can prepare that for our next meeting. Both items, the gateway signage program, as well as potential ideas for a town hall, police department, and possibly a museum and park sign.
My apologies for getting this up.
While we're on this sign discussion, Kim, does the DMV Select, will they be coming to the board? So we will be bringing a DMV Select application for signage to the board as well. I'll go ahead and work with Kim and Chris on that, and that will probably be something we could do at the next ARB meeting so that we can be prepared for that opening. So that'll tie in nicely here with the discussion of the signs on the building. And then, are there any other questions on that section of the CIP? Or other comments? Okay. The Quiet Zone implementation program. So the Quiet Zone is for the train that runs through town, and so we are currently working on trying to make sure that all of our crossings and all of our safety equipment within the town limits would be up to code. We're making sure that if there's any investments that we as the town need to do, that can be covered in year 2, 3, and 4, so that ultimately the Quiet Zone could be in effect from Alton Broad Run all the way through Manassas, and we wouldn't be hearing the train horn during certain hours of the day. So that's something the town has been working on up to now, so we've left that in here as well. On Monday night, it was asked that we include a police cruiser line item for the police department. So you see that pop up in year 2 and 3. I do not have a lot of additional information on that. That is something that I can certainly talk to either Mr. Weir, who recommended the update, or I can ask our police department liaison, Mr. Morris, if you guys have questions on that. Or Marchant could reach out to his fellow council members Monday night and provide you guys answers. And then lastly, for the museum, I do not currently have anything for the CIP. We do have a small budget for the museum, and we'll be working with our in-town graphic designer to develop some additional, she's going to take some of our historic stories and develop them into kind of more of a long-term hanging item. We're trying to figure out what the best material is to use there, so it'll be something that looks a little bit more like when you go into other museums, how you have permanent fixtures to the wall. We're going to work on a hanging system so that we're not hanging them directly into the plaster walls and damaging them. So that's something that Macrina and I are working on, and we hope to do within this budget, and then we'll continue each year to work on adding some of those historic stories or displays to the museum. So currently, we have not asked for any additional items in the museum CIP. It may be something that we look at doing, though, for painting the outside of the structure. Might be time that it needs it again in year 3. We did just have that done about 2 years ago, so we can kind of reevaluate that. But otherwise, we don't have anything at this time. So are there any?
The only thing I would add to that is, as part of the budget too, is landscaping. The cherry tree that's out front has to come down. The tree that's now leaning over by where the hotel is. So there are maintenance items that are in the budget. It's just not showing up on the
Update
CIP.
on that. The cherry tree will be taken down this week or next and replaced with a new cherry tree. The one that's out there, majority of it has died off. A lot of factors played into that, but we are replacing it with another cherry tree there. And then some of the more unsightly trees in the back that have just kind of, when the previous buildings were up, they just kind of blended in and we didn't quite notice them as much. We are working to get those also taken down. We're a little constrained right now with where the construction fencing is, but those will be taken care of. And then we're also looking at cleaning up the landscaping beds right around the museum so that they're very nice and presentable, especially since we have a person in there every day opening up the museum. So we want it to be looking its best.
Do we have, in the sort of the planning that we might do and the promotion of the historical nature of the town, even including the museum, is built into any of that, and this might not be the right time to ask this, but do we have plans to think about, given the current climate, in today's world, looking at, updating, the history that we share about the town and celebrating, all of the town residents that we've had in the past, and maybe just considering, everybody that's contributed to the town history, maybe not some of just what's out there, but, just in what we've seen from a climate standpoint across the country, do we have any plans to kind of, celebrate everybody that's been a part of our town's history as well, just to keep up with what we're seeing in the rest of the country?
I think that's a great idea. That is certainly something that myself and the town manager can look into. And we can see, we have a couple, we have a planning assistant who will be here in person this summer, as well as a part-time assistant who can help us kind of do some of that research and go down to the library and get that information. So that's a great idea. We'll definitely
with the hotel
exploring.
and anticipated, potential tourism, it's probably something that I think would even be another draw if it's something that people know that they can find out here in the town.
Absolutely. And especially including a lot of our communities right in and around town, because I think, as history goes, not everybody could always live in town based on,
Right.
who they were. So including those other communities and neighborhoods. Any other comments on the CIP? Anything, any additions that maybe I missed that you guys have thoughts on?
One question I had just back on the sidewalks. I know we've talked a little bit about looking at the sidewalk work that's going to go out here and what that might be with the stamped versus the regular. So is that something that we're going to try and do if we're going to build out that sidewalk up to the park? Would we try and do something along those lines if that's what we're going to try and do ultimately someday?
Yes, that would be the goal.
Okay.
We would like to do that. Speaking of that, I did speak today with the hotel property owners. We did update them of the stamped concrete item that we discussed for the sidewalks, and so we will be working with their contractor to get some bids, and hopefully we find a really good contractor who can also bid out some of the other portions. But yes, we would be moving forward with that stamped concrete, herringbone pattern, red brick color.
Okay.
I do have, if that's everything on the CIP, I will be presenting this back to the town council. If you guys think of anything else, certainly let myself or Marchant know, and we'll take it up to the council. But I do have two other items for new business. Just save this. Okay, number one, if everybody has a chance to look at their calendar, I would like to plan our training work session. And I was going to ask everybody if they could make a 5:30 or a 6 o'clock training work session on May 19th. That is the same day as our regular meeting, and we would just meet prior to it.
I work till 5:30,
Work
so
till
it
5:30,
would have to be 6 for me.
6 would work though?
Yeah.
Okay. Would that work for everybody else? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. If anything changes, please let me know. Otherwise, I will proceed with planning out our training work session. As I mentioned in the past, so that everybody feels comfortable and trained on different COAs, we're going to pull some of our previous applications and just kind of run through them as if we were looking at them again. And then I will also provide a couple that could be possible hypotheticals. So we'll go over everything from new construction, a historic application, a sign. I think for the most part, we're pretty good on fences and some of the smaller ones, so we'll do some of the commercial applications. And then another item I have, and this is something you can tell me after the meeting, but I just would like everybody to give some thought to, the best way for communications with the board. So we do sometimes need to contact everybody and get some pretty speedy responses based on if we're going to be able to have a meeting, quorums, agenda items, things of that nature. So if you'll just let me know what's the best way to contact you, whether it's the town email, a personal email, a phone number. We here would like the preference to be the town email, so if that's, if anything's different, let me know. Those are the only items I have for new business, unless anybody else has one that they'd like to share. Nope.
No.
Okay. I will do a quick planning commission update. So on Monday night, we had a planning commission meeting. We had our 6 p.m. work session. We are working through the zoning text amendment. At our next meeting, I will be bringing the zoning text amendment to the ARB. I will be assigning several articles for you guys to be looking at. Mainly it's going to be the Old and Historic Haymarket District article, as well as the signage and the landscaping. So I will send that to you guys via email prior to the meeting, and I just ask that you guys take a few moments to read through it. If you see anything that you think could be updated, anything that needs better clarification, just make some comments. I will send that to you electronically so that we can do track changes if you'd like, or if you jot notes on paper better, that's fine as well. We will discuss that at our next meeting and possibly schedule a work session. And then the Planning Commission also discussed the CIP, which we just went through. We did not have any agenda items for that meeting. However, at the next meeting, they will be looking at the Carter School site plan. And as I previously mentioned, Crossroads will be back for a public hearing May 3rd at the Town Council. And that's all I have for the Planning Commission.
I'm sure I do have a question. Okay to ask?
Yes.
Historic district overlay.
Oh,
It was right to me that,
yes.
could you catch us up on that discussion, please?
Yes, I apologize for missing that. That was a big discussion. So it was brought up by Councilman Weir as our Planning Commission liaison that there is some interest in looking at if the historic district overlay should be shrunk. And so that is something that I will work with him to get the map or whatever was envisioned at the time that he brought that up. I can present it to the Architectural Review Board at our next meeting as part of the ZTA. Currently, the entirety of the town is in the historic district overlay. And so we can discuss through if it is of interest. If it is not, we can prepare, something to pass up to the town council. Either way, we will have a map here. That can be something we also work on in the work session so that we can kind of be a little bit more interactive with the map. But definitely give that some thought if you guys will. On our town website, we do have the current map up there. So if you want to look at it, look at the different zoning districts. You can also access via the comprehensive plan all of the historic structures list, and you can see on that map as well just about where they're situated, and if you have any suggestions for that overlay, we'd love to hear them.
Chair, if I may, so previously when working for the town, the council did consider amending the overlay to just shrink to the corridors, the major road corridors and some distance off that. In the entirety of that area was also based, as Ms. Leonard was talking about earlier, just with that most of our buildings 50 years or older are along those corridors, and those that are still designated as contributing structures are still along those corridors. So the gateways, the corridors themselves, I think Emily may have saved you some time. There was probably a map that was amended for it, and there was some language that was adopted for it. I think it was all, we went through public hearing all the way to the council, and the council ultimately decided to keep the current boundary. One challenge we would have is we would unlikely be able to expand it again, just because the state code has changed their rules on how you establish historic districts. So unlikely, once we shrunk the corridor, that would probably be it. There seemed to be utility, or there's utility in the fact that most of these developments off the main corridors are HOAs that already have, architecture review and control. So it'd be worth visiting again.
Right. Okay.
Plan.
All right. Do you have any town council updates? Are there additional, outside of what we've already heard?
Sure, just, we did talk about the budget for the ARB. We currently do not have a training budget, but there was some discussion of swapping or taking some of the training money from the Planning Commission to be able to help us. So the training money at the time was allocated for the state training that the Planning Commission does. It was previously brought up before about hiring an architect. I forgot to bring that up during the CIP. We had vetted that option once before. I need to revisit. I think the town manager had looked into kind of like a architecture, or not an architect on call. So we'll have to revisit that discussion again, but there was a request to bring some money over to our side if we'd like to get some training. And I'll look to see if there's any state or local training that we can attend to be able to get, begin to learn the vernacular and begin to learn the language of how to evaluate these applications. It'll tie in nicely with what Emily is already talking about. We did talk about too, how to put in the windows and doors on the outbuilding behind the Utterback House. That outbuilding, a couple of the doors are boarded up, some of the windows are boarded up. To put in a request, whether under the maintenance budget or maybe that's a CIP item, that would go ahead and put in the period correct windows and doors in that structure, so that we can make sure it's weatherized. So in the budget, most of you have heard, we appointed Officer Jake Davis as the town sergeant. In the interim, we've put out applications for officers, or we've posted openings for officers. The current budget does fully fund 6 officers and funds other elements of the police department. So that's been a lot of discussion lately. And Emily, anything I'm missing? We've already talked about the hearing. Budget's been the big thing. Ms. Kim, anything I'm missing? Oh, the DMV Select. Is there an update you could provide us real quick on that? That's the window that everyone, as you see as you come in.
Lots of exciting news for the DMV Select. We met with the DMV Select district manager this last week. We have to provide a ADA compliant service counter before we can open. So that second window will be installed before we open. We got approval on everything, all of our ideas that we showed him. We got approval from DMV. Contract is going to be presented to the town council. The attorney's reviewing that. Shouldn't be any hiccup at the state contract. So the ad has gone out for employment. We're going to be hiring one full-time DMV Select person. She's actually will be a town employee. They will be a town employee. I can't gender. And until we get the ball rolling, and then we'll probably hire a part-time person. We ordered some equipment. We're getting ready to go. We will go live on July 1st. So July 1st, we will open our doors for DMB Select. So things are moving very quickly.
Will it be by appointment only?
It will be by
Okay.
appointment only. And we'll be making our appointments through Microsoft 365, once we get it all squared away.
And there is, Madam Chair, there's a renewal period, so we'll have to see how this first year works. If it doesn't work as described, we'll have to revisit it. But for now, it's been a nominal investment up front to put in the windows. So cross your fingers, this becomes a success, and we're not expecting it to be disruptive to the other businesses. And I think we were estimating the budget almost $60,000.
Yeah, we put it in the proposed budget for a revenue of $60,000, which would be a $5,000 profit each month.
The idea is to diversify our tax, diversify the income that we take, rather than just relying solely on taxes. So that'll be a good thing. The hotel across the street, I think Mr. Morgan said he's going to be in next week. I think is going to start offering tours. So if folks want to go tour the hotel as it starts to go up, I will I'll work with Emily to coordinate with Mr. Morgan to get you guys in there. We may have to rotate it. Last time the council did site visits, we had to rotate it just because of the FOIA requirements. Not that we can't notice it and just have us all go there at once, but it was just more intimate to be able to sort of divide up the council and go through. We can do that the same with smaller groups as well. So they seem to be moving quickly and on time. And then the data center hearings tonight, the data centers are proposed on the east side of town. I don't know if you've seen the white billboards up on the right. I'm hoping it's a good discussion. Is Bob there tonight representing, or?
Chris is actually there tonight representing the town. I believe that Councilman Weir is there separately representing the coalition.
Okay. Seems like the biggest two things there is power, how they're going to get the power in there, and then design. Certainly my experience with Loudon is data centers are everywhere, and it's trying to hide them in plain sight. So hopefully there's a good discussion about design. And then the traffic circle went in right across from the post office, and they took it out. So as part of the Van Meter project, they poured the half of the roundabout, and then they took it out the next day. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but a lot of
The
activity.
road's in pretty bad shape
Yeah.
down there.
I can feel it.
Yeah, it didn't
So-
help. VDOT came through and tore up some of it, and then we had winter and bad salt, things like that. So it'll be nice when it's all done.
Yes.
Last thing, Madam Chair, the yoga studio, are they moving forward with their?
So they're currently in site plan review, so
Okay.
the town has issued back our first round of comments to the applicant and their engineer. So we're just waiting on their response.
Thank you. That's all I had. Thanks.
Have we heard back also, I know I haven't seen them come up on the agenda, any additional inquiry from the Aldi group about their signage, et cetera?
We have not received any additional items from Aldi regarding their signage. They are working on a separate application to do a boundary line adjustment within the entirety of the subdivision parcel there of the strip center as well as the main structure. Depending on how that application goes, we may see a monument sign application come in.
Okay.
That is
Anything
all I
else?
have for this evening.
Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.